What would you do if your husband showed up at your work, handed you a thick envelope, and said it was over, all because you refused to give up your best friend? Can refusing to choose really cost you everything, even when you believe you're right? The day I got served those papers, I still thought he was the selfish one. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I never thought my marriage would end over a friendship. Looking back now, maybe I should have seen the signs earlier, but hindsight is 20/20, isn't it? My name is Celestina Vane, and I work as a case manager at the Downtown Health Clinic. I'm 32, married to Elias for 8 years, and we have a beautiful 6-year-old daughter named Lila. The problem started about 6 months ago when my childhood friend Maris Redding moved back to town. Mars and I had been inseparable growing up, and when she returned after her divorce, I was thrilled to reconnect. She was the same charismatic, fun-loving person I remembered, maybe even more so. After years of feeling trapped in routine, Mars brought excitement back into my life. "You're going out again?" Elias asked one Thursday evening as I grabbed my purse from the kitchen counter. He was sitting at our small dining table, helping Lila with her homework, his accountant's precision evident in how he organized her colored pencils. "It's just dinner with Mars," I replied, checking my reflection in the hallway mirror. I'd put on my favorite blue dress, the one that made my eyes pop. "We're catching up on old times." Elias looked up from Lila's math worksheet, his brown eyes showing concern. "That's the 3rd time this week, Celestina. What about family dinner?" I felt my jaw tighten. Here we go again. "Elias, she's my best friend. I haven't seen her in years. Can't you understand that I need some time with her?" "Mommy, are you leaving again?" Lila's small voice piped up, and I saw her looking at me with those big questioning eyes that reminded me so much of her father. "Just for a little while, sweetheart. Daddy will read you a bedtime story, won't you, Daddy?" Elias nodded, but I could see the frustration building in his expression. "Celestina, can we talk about this later? When you get home?" "There's nothing to talk about," I said, grabbing my keys. "Mars is going through a difficult time with her divorce and she needs support. I thought you'd understand that." The truth was, I didn't want to have this conversation. I knew Elias was feeling neglected, but couldn't he see that I deserved some happiness too? Our marriage had become so predictable, so boring. Work, home, sleep, repeat. Mars brought laughter and spontaneity back into my life. When I got home that night around 11, I found Elias waiting up in the living room, still in his work clothes. "How was dinner?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. "It was good. We went to that new bistro downtown." I kicked off my heels and collapsed onto the couch beside him. "Mars is thinking about starting her own business. She's got such great ideas." "Celestina, I found something today that bothers me." Elias pulled out my phone, which I'd left on the coffee table. "You got a text while you were gone, and the screen lit up. I couldn't help but see it." My heart skipped a beat. "You were looking through my phone?" "No, I wasn't looking through it. The message just appeared on the screen. It was from Mars, saying, 'Can't wait for our secret adventure tomorrow.'" He looked at me with those earnest eyes. "What secret adventure?" I snatched the phone from his hands, feeling heat rise in my cheeks. "It's nothing secretive, Elias. She's just being dramatic. We're planning to surprise our old friend Jenny for her birthday." It wasn't entirely true. Mars had suggested we skip work and go to the spa, but I couldn't tell Elias that. He'd never understand. "Celestina, I'm not trying to control you, but I'm concerned. You've been different since Mars came back, more distant. You're always texting her, always making plans with her. What about us? What about Lila?" "What about me?" I shot back, standing up. "I work 40 hours a week at the clinic. I take care of Lila. I manage this household. Can't I have one friend who makes me feel alive again?" "That's not what I'm saying." "It is exactly what you're saying. You're jealous of my friendship with Mars because she's fun and spontaneous, and you're... I stopped myself before saying something I'd regret. I'm what, Celestina? Nothing. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. As I walked toward our bedroom, I heard Elias call after me. If you change your passcode on that phone, we're going to have a real problem. I turned around, my hand on the door frame. Are you threatening me? I'm asking you to be transparent with your husband. Is that too much to ask? I stared at him for a long moment. Part of me wanted to sit back down, to explain how trapped and invisible I'd been feeling. But another part of me, the part that Mars had awakened, refused to back down. I'll change my passcode if I want to, I said quietly. You don't own me, Elias. The hurt that flashed across his face almost made me take it back. Almost. That night, I lay in bed listening to Elias brush his teeth in the bathroom, and I did change my passcode. From Lila's birthday to the date Mars and I had reconnected. It felt like a small act of rebellion, but also like I was protecting something precious. I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. Mars was my friend, my best friend, and if Elias couldn't handle that, it was his problem, not mine. I deserved happiness. I deserved friendship. I deserved to feel special. What I didn't realize then was that I was already starting to lose everything that actually mattered. The downtown bistro became our regular spot. Mars and I would meet there twice a week for lunch, and sometimes for dinner when I could get away. The place had this intimate atmosphere with dim lighting and cozy booth seating that made our conversations feel more personal, more meaningful. You look amazing today, Mars said, as I slid into our usual booth on a Tuesday afternoon. She was wearing a red dress that hugged her curves perfectly, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders. Even after her divorce, she maintained this effortless glamour that I envied. Thanks, I actually bought this outfit yesterday. I smoothed down my new black skirt, feeling a flutter of excitement. Elias doesn't even notice when I dress up anymore. Mars rolled her eyes. Honey, that man doesn't deserve you. You're vibrant and beautiful, and he treats you like a piece of furniture. Her words felt like validation I'd been craving for years. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed in touch after high school, if I hadn't married so young. Don't torture yourself with what-ifs, Mars said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. But it's not too late to start living for yourself. We ordered wine with lunch, something I never did normally, and spent 2 hours talking about everything and nothing. Mars had this way of making me feel like the most interesting person in the world. She laughed at my stories from the clinic, asked about my dreams, remembered details about conversations we'd had weeks earlier. I should probably get back to work, I said reluctantly, checking my phone. 3 missed calls from Elias. Let me get this, Mars insisted when the check came. Consider it a celebration of our renewed friendship. As we stood to leave, I heard someone call my name. Celestina Vane. I turned to see Rebecca Martinez, a woman I knew from Lila's school. She was standing near the hostess station with another mom I recognized, but couldn't name. Oh, hi, Rebecca, I said, my stomach suddenly knotting. How are you? I'm good. I didn't expect to see you here in the middle of the day. Her eyes moved curiously to Mars, who was standing close beside me, her hand resting casually on my lower back. This is my friend Mars. We were just catching up over lunch. Nice to meet you, Mars said with her charming smile, but she didn't move her hand. Well, I should let you get back to work, Rebecca said, but her tone suggested she was filing this encounter away for future reference. As we walked to our cars, I felt a mixture of anxiety and defiance. Do you think she'll say something to someone? Who cares if she does? Mars shrugged. You're allowed to have lunch with a friend. Don't let small-town gossips make you paranoid. But when I got home that evening, I could tell Elias had heard something. He was unusually quiet during dinner, and after Lila went to bed, he confronted me. Rebecca Martinez called me today, he said without preamble. My heart started racing. Oh? She said she saw you at the bistro with Mars. She seemed to think it was odd that you were there during work hours, drinking wine, looking very close. We had lunch. That's not a crime, Elias. You told me you were working late this week to catch up on cases, but you had time for a 2-hour wine lunch. I felt cornered, and when I feel cornered, I attack. Are you seriously going to take the word of some gossipy mom over your own wife? Rebecca Martinez has nothing better to do than spy on people and spread rumors. I'm not taking anyone's word over yours. I'm asking you to explain the discrepancy. The discrepancy? I laughed bitterly. You sound like you're auditing me, not talking to your wife. I had a networking lunch, Elias. Mars knows people in healthcare administration. She was giving me career advice. It wasn't entirely false. Mars had mentioned knowing some people in the field, though we'd spent most of our time talking about how unsatisfying our marriages had been. Networking, Elias repeated flatly. Yes, networking. Some of us are trying to advance our careers instead of just accepting mediocrity. The words came out harsher than I intended, and I saw Elias flinch. He made decent money as an accountant, but I knew he'd always felt insecure about not being more ambitious. I see, he said quietly. Well, next time you're networking, maybe let me know so I don't worry when you don't answer your phone. That weekend, I made what I now realize was a crucial mistake. Mars had posted a photo of us from the bistro on her Instagram. We were laughing, wine glasses raised, looking carefree and happy. I reposted it to my own social media with the caption, "Besties forever, so grateful for old friendships and new adventures. Nos blessed true now friendship, and us living my best life." I thought it looked innocent enough. Two friends enjoying each other's company, but I didn't consider how it might look to others, to Elias's co-workers, to the parents at Lila's school, to our neighbors who followed me online. Monday morning at work, my colleague Janet pulled me aside. "Girl, you and your friend look like you're having way too much fun without your husbands," she said with a knowing smirk. "What do you mean?" "That photo you posted, you two look like you're celebrating something. Or someone." She waggled her eyebrows suggestively. "Janet, that's ridiculous. We're just friends." But as the day went on, I noticed other colleagues glancing at me differently, whispering when I walked by. Had they all seen the photo? Were they all making assumptions? When Elias picked me up from work that day, something he rarely did, I knew something was wrong. "Get in," he said, his jaw tight. "What's wrong?" "Where's Lila?" "She's at my father's. We need to talk." As we drove home in silence, I tried to prepare myself for another confrontation, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. 3 different people at my office asked me about your Instagram post today, he said as soon as we walked through the front door. 3, Celestina, my boss, my assistant, and a colleague from the tax department. What did they say? They wanted to know if everything was okay at home, if we were having problems, because apparently the way you and Mars look together in that photo suggests you're more than just friends. I felt my face burn with embarrassment and anger. That's their dirty minds, not reality. I can't help what other people think. You can help what you post online. You can help how you present yourself and our marriage to the world. Our marriage. This is about our marriage now. Yes, it's about our marriage. When my co-workers are asking if my wife is having an affair, yes, it's about our marriage. The word affair hung in the air between us like a bomb. I knew I should reassure him, should explain that Mars was just a friend, should apologize for the misunderstanding. Instead, I doubled down. If people want to make assumptions based on a photo of 2 friends having lunch, that says more about them than it does about me. I'm not going to live my life worried about what small-minded people think. Small-minded people, Celestina, these are people we have to face every day. People who know our daughter, who know our family. Your reputation affects all of us. My reputation. What about my happiness? What about my right to have friends and enjoy myself? No one is saying you can't have friends. That's exactly what you're saying. You want me to drop Mars because other people are gossiping. Well, I won't do it. She's the best friend I've ever had, and I'm not going to let your insecurity destroy that. Elias stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something change in his expression. The hurt was still there, but it was hardening into something else, something that looked like resolve. Fine, he said quietly. Keep your friend, but don't expect me to pretend this isn't humiliating. He walked toward our bedroom, then turned back. And Celestina, next time you want to post photos of your networking lunches, maybe consider how they might affect your husband and daughter. Some of us still care about our family's reputation. That night, I called Mars and told her about the fight. She listened sympathetically, making all the right supportive noises. He's trying to isolate you, she said. It's a classic control tactic. Don't let him make you feel guilty for being happy. Her words felt like a lifeline. Finally, someone who understood what I was going through. What I didn't realize was that I was drowning, and Mars wasn't throwing me a rope. She was tying an anchor around my ankle. The tension at home became unbearable. Elias barely spoke to me, unless it was about Lila or household logistics. When he did look at me, I could see the disappointment in his eyes, which only made me more defiant. If he was going to treat me like the villain, I might as well embrace the role. My mother, Vivian, called me at work on a Wednesday afternoon, her voice full of concern. Sweetheart, Elias called me yesterday. He seems very upset about your friend. What did he say? He's worried that you're spending too much time with this Mars person. He thinks she's a bad influence. I felt my blood pressure spike. He called my mother to complain about my friends? That's incredibly inappropriate. He's concerned about his marriage, honey. Can you blame him? I can blame him for going behind my back instead of talking to me directly, and I can blame him for trying to turn my own family against me. No one's turning against you. We just want you to be happy, and if this friendship is causing problems in your marriage... The friendship isn't causing problems, Mom. Elias's jealousy and control issues are causing problems. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Celestina, are you sure that's all this is? A friendship? The question hit me like a slap. Even my own mother was doubting me now. I can't believe you're asking me that. Yes, Mars is my friend, my best friend, and I'm not going to apologize for having someone in my life who actually supports me and makes me feel valued. Okay. I'm sorry I asked. It's just, your father and I have been married for 35 years, and I've learned that sometimes we have to make sacrifices for our marriages. Maybe you could just spend a little less time with Mars, for the sake of peace. Why should I sacrifice my happiness for Elias's insecurity? Why is it always the woman who has to give up something? After I hung up, I felt more isolated than ever. Even my own mother was taking Elias's side. I texted Mars immediately. Can you meet for coffee? Having a rough day? She responded within minutes. Of course, babe. Our usual place in 20. Sitting across from Mars in the little coffee shop near my work, I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. She listened as I vented about Elias calling my mother, about everyone taking his side, about feeling like I was being ganged up on. You know what this is, don't you? Mars said, stirring her latte thoughtfully. It's emotional abuse. He's isolating you from support systems, making you doubt yourself, recruiting your family to pressure you. These are classic manipulation tactics. Her words resonated with something deep inside me. I never thought of it that way. Most women don't recognize it when it's happening to them. It's subtle, gradual. But think about it. When was the last time Elias encouraged you to do something that made you happy? When was the last time he complimented you or made you feel special? I tried to think, but honestly couldn't remember. Our interactions had become so routine, so functional. He used to, I said weakly. Used to doesn't count. You deserve better, Celestina. You deserve someone who celebrates your friendships instead of trying to destroy them. That evening, I came home to find Elias in the kitchen, making dinner while Lila sat at the counter doing her homework. It was such a normal, domestic scene, but I felt like an outsider looking in. "How was work?" Elias asked without looking up from the stove. "Fine. How was yours?" "Fine." Lila looked between us with those perceptive 6-year-old eyes. "Mommy, are you and Daddy fighting?" "No, sweetheart," I said quickly. "We're just tired." But Elias chose that moment to look at me directly. "Actually, Lila, Mommy and I are having some disagreements about grown-up things, but it's not your fault, and we both love you very much." I was furious that he'd brought Lila into it, even peripherally. After dinner, once Lila was in bed, I confronted him. "You had no right to say that to her." "Say what? That we're having disagreements? She's not blind, Celestina. She can feel the tension in this house. You're scaring her unnecessarily. I'm being honest with her. Someone in this family should be." The implication was clear, and it made me see red. "Are you calling me a liar?" "I'm saying you're not being truthful about what's happening here. With us, with Mars, with any of it." "There's nothing to be truthful about. Mars is my friend. That's it. The fact that you can't accept that says everything about your character, not mine." Elias ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I recognized as his way of trying to stay calm. "Celestina, I'm going to ask you one more time. Will you please set some boundaries with Mars? Not cut her off completely, just spend less time with her. Make our marriage a priority." It was the perfect opportunity to de-escalate, to find a compromise. But Mars's words about emotional abuse were still ringing in my ears, and I felt like giving in would be admitting defeat. "No," I said firmly. "I won't let you control who I'm friends with. If you can't handle me having a close female friendship, that's your problem to work through, not mine to solve." Something shifted in Elias's expression. The pleading look disappeared, replaced by something harder. "Fine, but I want you to know that I'm not going to keep pretending this is normal. I'm not going to keep acting like everything is okay when it's not." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done enabling this situation. I'm done being the understanding husband while you prioritize another person over your family." "I'm not prioritizing anyone over my family." "Really? When was the last time you and I went out to dinner alone? When was the last time you asked me about my day and actually listened to the answer? When was the last time you seemed happy to see me when I came home from work?" His questions hung in the air, and I realized I couldn't answer any of them. But instead of acknowledging that, I deflected. "When was the last time you made me feel appreciated? When was the last time you told me I looked beautiful or planned something special for us? This marriage has been dead in the water for years, Elias. Mars didn't cause that." "You're right," he said quietly. "Our marriage has problems, but instead of working on them together, you've decided to invest all your emotional energy in someone else. How is that supposed to help us?" I didn't have a good answer for that, so I fell back on what Mars had told me. "I'm not responsible for fixing your insecurities." Elias stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You're absolutely right. You're not responsible for fixing my insecurities, and I'm not responsible for tolerating behavior that disrespects our marriage." He walked toward the bedroom, then turned back one final time. "I love you, Celestina. I've loved you for 8 years, but I love myself too, and I won't keep begging you to choose our family. The next move is yours." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation. Part of me wanted to reach over and touch Elias's shoulder, to tell him I was sorry, that we could work this out. But a bigger part of me felt angry and misunderstood. Why should I have to give up the one relationship that made me feel alive just to appease his jealousy? I picked up my phone and texted Mars. "Can we talk tomorrow? I think Elias is planning something." Her response came back immediately, even though it was past midnight. "Always here for you, babe. Don't let him intimidate you." But as I finally drifted off to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing at the edge of a cliff, and the next step I took would determine whether I learned to fly or simply fell. The next few weeks felt like living in a war zone. Elias and I maintained a cold politeness around Leela, but when she wasn't around, We barely spoke. I threw myself deeper into my friendship with Mars, spending even more time at her apartment, staying out later, caring less about what anyone thought. Mars lived in a trendy downtown loft with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows. It felt like a different world from our suburban townhouse, with its family-friendly furniture and Lila's toys scattered around. At Mars's place, I could pretend I was someone else, someone sophisticated and unencumbered. "You look stressed," Mars observed one Thursday evening as I collapsed onto her leather sofa with a glass of wine. "Elias giving you more grief?" "He's barely speaking to me. It's actually worse than when he was confronting me. Now he just goes about his business like I'm not even there." "Maybe that's for the best. Gives you space to think about what you really want." I took a large sip of wine. "I know what I want. I want to feel like myself again. I want to feel appreciated and valued." Mars curled up beside me on the couch, closer than friends usually sit. "You are appreciated. I appreciate you. I value our friendship more than you know." Her words warmed me more than the wine. Sometimes I think about what my life would be like if I'd made different choices, if I hadn't gotten married so young, if I'd traveled more, experienced more. "It's not too late for any of that," Mars said softly. "You're only 32. You could start over, be whoever you want to be." "What about Lila?" "Lila would adjust. Kids are resilient, and she'd probably be happier with parents who are happy separately than parents who are miserable together." The idea was both terrifying and thrilling. Could I really start over? Could I really leave my marriage for the possibility of something better? "I can't think about that right now," I said, but even as I said it, I was thinking about it. Mars's phone buzzed with a text, and as she read it, her expression changed slightly. "I hate to cut this short, but I have an early morning tomorrow. Rain check on dinner?" I felt a pang of disappointment but tried not to show it. Of course, I should get home anyway. As I drove home through the quiet suburban streets, I felt the familiar dread settling in my stomach. Another evening of cold silence with Elias, another night of lying in bed next to someone who felt like a stranger. But when I walked through the front door, I found Elias sitting at the kitchen table, with his laptop open and papers spread around him. He looked up when I entered, and I was surprised to see something that looked almost like pity in his eyes. "We need to talk," he said. "About what?" "About this." He turned his laptop screen toward me, and I saw my own social media profile displayed. "About the fact that half the town is talking about my wife's friendship with Mars Redding." My heart started pounding. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that my boss asked me today if everything was okay at home. I'm talking about the fact that Lila's teacher pulled me aside at pickup to ask if there were any family changes she should be aware of. I'm talking about the fact that my own brother called to ask if the rumors he's hearing are true." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What rumors?" "That you're having an affair, that you've been seen around town acting inappropriately with another woman, that our marriage is falling apart. Those are just rumors, gossip, small-town nonsense." "Are they, though?" Elias closed the laptop and looked at me directly. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like there might be some truth to them. I am not having an affair. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. Celestina, you're more invested in your relationship with Mars than you are in your relationship with me. You spend more time with her, you share more with her, you care more about her opinion than mine. If that's not an emotional affair, what is it?" I wanted to deny it, but the words stuck in my throat. Because when I really thought about it, he wasn't wrong. I did care more about Mars's opinion. I did share more with her. I did look forward to seeing her more than I looked forward to seeing my own husband. "That doesn't make it an affair," I said weakly. "It makes it a betrayal. And the fact that you can't see that makes it worse." We stared at each other across the kitchen table, and I felt something fundamental shift between us. This wasn't just another argument about my friendship with Mars. This was bigger than that. "What do you want from me, Elias?" "I want you to choose. I want you to decide what matters more, your marriage and your family, or your friendship with Mars. That's not fair. You're asking me to choose between two important relationships. No, I'm asking you to prioritize. I'm asking you to remember that you made vows to me, not to her. I'm asking you to consider what this is doing to our daughter, to our family, to our reputation in this community. I shouldn't have to choose. You already have chosen. You've chosen her over and over again for months. I'm just asking you to make it official, so we can both stop pretending. The ultimatum hung between us like a sword. I knew this was the moment that would define everything that came next. I could apologize, could promise to set boundaries with Mars, could try to rebuild what Elias and I had lost. Or I could stand my ground, could refuse to be controlled, could choose my own happiness over everyone else's expectations. I won't be controlled, I said finally. I won't give up the one relationship that makes me feel alive just because other people don't understand it. Elias nodded slowly, as if he'd expected that answer. Okay, then we're done pretending this marriage means anything to you. What does that mean? It means I'm done fighting for someone who doesn't want to be fought for. It means I'm going to start protecting myself and Lila instead of trying to save something you've already destroyed. He stood up and started gathering his papers. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight, and Celestina, you might want to be more careful about where you go and who you're seen with. This town is smaller than you think, and people talk more than you realize. As he walked toward the guest room, I felt a mixture of relief and terror. Relief that the pretending was over, that I didn't have to keep justifying myself, but terror at what came next. I texted Mars immediately. We need to talk. Can I come over? But for the first time since we'd reconnected, she didn't respond right away. In fact, she didn't respond at all that night. I lay awake in our empty bedroom, staring at my phone, waiting for a message that never came. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. But it was too late for wondering. The lines had been drawn, and I was about to find out which side everyone was really on. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. Elias had already left for work, and Lila was spending the weekend at his father Harold's house, something that had apparently been arranged without my input. I felt a surge of anger at being excluded from decisions about my own daughter, but also a strange sense of relief. No more pretending everything was normal. No more walking on eggshells. I finally heard back from Mars around noon. Her text was brief. Sorry, crazy night. Can't meet today. Talk soon. It wasn't like her to be so distant, but I tried not to read too much into it. She was probably just busy. I decided to use the alone time to think, to figure out my next steps. But thinking was the last thing I wanted to do, because thinking meant acknowledging some uncomfortable truths. Like the fact that Elias had been right about the gossip. Like the fact that I'd been prioritizing Mars over my family. Like the fact that I'd been lying to myself about what I really wanted. Instead of thinking, I cleaned the house obsessively, did laundry, organized closets, anything to keep my hands and mind busy. But by evening, the silence was driving me crazy. I called my sister Jenna. Hey, Cel, how are things? Jenna's voice was careful, neutral. They've been better. Elias and I had a big fight last night. About Mars. I was surprised by her directness. You've heard. Mom told me, and honestly, Cel, I've been worried about you. This whole situation seems intense. Intense how? You've been different since Mars came back, more secretive, more defensive, and the way you talk about her, it's like you're infatuated. She's my best friend, Jenna. I'm allowed to care about my friends. Of course you are, but when your friendship starts destroying your marriage, maybe it's time to step back and evaluate. I felt the familiar surge of anger. Why is everyone taking Elias's side? Why am I automatically the villain here? No one thinks you're a villain. We're just concerned. Elias is a good man and he loves you. And Lila needs stable parents, not parents who are at war with each other. Elias gave me an ultimatum. He wants me to choose between him and Mars. And what did you tell him? I told him I wouldn't be controlled. There was a long pause. Cel, can I ask you something? And I want you to really think before you answer. Okay. Are you in love with Mars? The question hit me like a physical blow. What? No, she's my friend. Are you sure? Because from the outside, it looks like you're having an affair, an emotional affair at minimum. I am not having an affair. Then why are you willing to destroy your marriage to protect this friendship? I didn't have a good answer for that. It's complicated. It's really not, Cel. Either your marriage matters to you or it doesn't. Either you want to fight for your family or you don't. But you can't have both. You can't keep Mars as your primary emotional relationship and expect Elias to be okay with it. After I hung up, I sat in my empty house feeling more alone than ever. Even Jenna was against me now. Even my own sister thought I was wrong. I tried calling Mars, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried texting her, but got no response. Where was she when I needed her most? Sunday evening, Elias came home with Lila, and I could immediately tell something had changed. Lila was quieter than usual, clinging to her father in a way that made my chest tight. How was Grandpa's house? I asked her, trying to sound normal. It was okay. Daddy and Grandpa talked a lot about grown-up things. I looked at Elias sharply. What kind of grown-up things? Nothing that concerns you, he said coldly. Leila, why don't you go get ready for your bath? After Layla was out of earshot, I confronted him. What did you tell your father? I told him the truth, that our marriage is over and I'm going to need support in the coming months. Our marriage isn't over. Isn't it? You made your choice pretty clear on Friday night. I chose not to be controlled. That doesn't mean I chose to end our marriage. Elias laughed, but there was no humor in it. Celestina, you can't have it both ways. You can't refuse to prioritize our marriage and then claim you want to save it. Maybe if you'd tried harder to make me happy, I wouldn't have needed to find happiness elsewhere. There it is, he said quietly. The truth finally comes out. You've been looking for happiness elsewhere. With Mars. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. And you know what? I'm done pretending I don't see what's happening here. I'm done pretending this is salvageable. He walked toward the stairs, then turned back. Oh, and Celestina, you might want to check your bank account. I've opened a separate account and moved half our savings. I've also spoken to a lawyer about custody arrangements. I felt the floor drop out from under me. You what? I'm protecting myself and Lila, something I should have done months ago. You can't just take our money. I took half of our money, the half that belongs to me. The other half is still in our joint account for you to use however you want, though I'd suggest being careful with it, since you might need it for legal fees soon. As he walked upstairs to help Lila with her bath, I stood in the living room, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. This was really happening. Elias wasn't bluffing or trying to scare me. He was actually preparing to leave me. I grabbed my phone and called Mars again. This time, she answered. Hey, babe. Sorry I've been MIA. Crazy weekend. Mars, I need to see you. Everything is falling apart. There was a pause. What do you mean? Elias is talking to lawyers. He's moved money around. I think he's really going to leave me. Another pause. Longer this time. Maybe that's for the best. What? I mean, you've been miserable with him for years. Maybe this is your chance to start fresh. But what about Lila? What about everything we've built? Celestina, I need to tell you something. Mars's voice sounded different, more distant. I've been thinking a lot about our friendship, and I think maybe we need to take a step back. I felt like I was falling. What are you talking about? This situation with your husband is getting too intense, too complicated. I never wanted to be the reason someone's marriage fell apart. You're not the reason. Elias is just jealous and controlling. Is he, though? Or is he just a man who's watching his wife fall in love with someone else? The words hung in the air between us. Mars, I'm not. You are, though, and I think part of me encouraged it, because I was lonely and going through my own divorce. But it's not fair to any of us, especially not to your daughter. I couldn't breathe. Are you ending our friendship? I'm saying we need space. I'm saying you need to figure out what you really want, and you can't do that while you're using me as an escape from your real life. I can't believe this. I gave up everything for you. No, you gave up everything to avoid dealing with your problems. I was just the excuse. The line went dead, and I stared at my phone in shock. Mars had abandoned me. Just like that, the person I'd sacrificed my marriage for had walked away. I sank onto the couch and finally let myself cry. Not the angry tears I'd been shedding for months, but deep, wrenching sobs that came from the recognition of what I'd lost and what I'd thrown away. Upstairs, I could hear Elias reading Lila a bedtime story, his voice gentle and patient, the same voice he'd used with me for 8 years, before I'd pushed him away in favor of someone who'd never really been there at all. But it was too late for regrets. The damage was done, and tomorrow I would have to face the consequences of all the choices I'd made in the name of my own happiness. Monday morning came too soon. I'd barely slept, spending most of the night alternating between anger at Mars for abandoning me and panic about what Elias might do next. When I got to work, I could barely concentrate on my cases. Every phone call, every knock on my office door made me jump. Around 11 a.m., my worst fears were realized. My supervisor, Dr. Patricia Wells, called me into her office with a concerned expression. "Celestina, we need to discuss some concerns that have been brought to my attention regarding your conduct." My stomach dropped. What kind of concerns? There have been reports about your personal life affecting your professional reputation, extended lunch breaks, personal phone calls during work hours, and some rumors about your relationships outside of work. I felt my face burn with embarrassment and anger. Dr. Wells, my personal life has nothing to do with my job performance. Normally, I'd agree. But when your personal life becomes public knowledge and reflects poorly on the clinic, it becomes my concern. We serve a conservative community, Celestina. Our patients and their families expect a certain level of professionalism from our staff. Are you firing me? I'm putting you on notice. Consider this a formal warning. Any further incidents that bring negative attention to the clinic will result in disciplinary action, up to and including termination. I walked back to my office, feeling humiliated and trapped. Even my job was now at risk because of this situation. I tried calling Mars again, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried texting her, begging her to reconsider, to help me figure out what to do next. No response. By the time I got home that evening, I was emotionally exhausted, but my day was about to get much worse. Elias was waiting for me in the living room, and he wasn't alone. A woman in a business suit was sitting across from him, a briefcase at her feet and papers spread on the coffee table. "Celestina, this is Janet Morrison, my attorney," Elias said calmly. "We need to discuss the terms of our separation." I felt like I was in a bad dream. "Your attorney? Elias, don't you think we should try counseling first? Or at least talk about this ourselves before involving lawyers? We've been talking for months. You've made your position clear, and now I'm making mine clear." Janet Morrison looked up at me with professional sympathy. "Mrs. Vane, please have a seat. This doesn't have to be adversarial, but there are legal matters that need to be addressed." "What legal matters?" Elias answered. "Custody of Lila, division of assets, spousal support, living arrangements, all the things that happen when a marriage ends." "Our marriage isn't ending. This is just a rough patch." "Celestina," Janet said gently, "your husband has filed for legal separation. The process has already begun." I sank onto the couch, feeling like the room was spinning. "Filed for separation? When?" "This morning," Elias said. "I tried to give you chances to work this out, but you've made it clear that our marriage isn't your priority." "That's not true." "Really? Then where were you last night when I was putting our daughter to bed alone? Where were you this weekend when she asked why Mommy and Daddy don't talk anymore? Where have you been for the past 6 months when I've been trying to save our marriage? I opened my mouth to respond, but realized I didn't have good answers. I'd been with Mars, or thinking about Mars, or fighting with Elias about Mars. I hadn't been present for my family in months. Janet opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. We're proposing a trial separation of 6 months, during which time you and Mr. Vane will live separately. Mr. Vane will maintain primary custody of Lila, with you having supervised visitation rights initially. Supervised visitation? She's my daughter. Mrs. Vane, your recent behavior has raised concerns about your judgment and priorities. The court will want to ensure that Lila's best interests are protected. I looked at Elias desperately. You're taking my daughter away from me. I'm protecting our daughter from an unstable situation. When you can demonstrate that you're committed to being a responsible parent and not prioritizing other relationships over her well-being, we can discuss expanded custody. Other relationships? There are no other relationships. Mars and I were just friends. Were? Janet asked, making a note. Past tense? I realized my slip and felt my cheeks burn. We are friends. But that friendship is over anyway. Mars doesn't want to see me anymore. The admission hung in the air, and I saw something that might have been pity flash across Elias's face. I'm sorry to hear that, he said quietly. But it doesn't change what's happened to our marriage. Janet continued outlining the terms of the separation. I would move out of the family home. Elias would keep the house and primary custody of Lila. I would pay child support based on my income. We would split our remaining assets 50-50, but Elias had already protected his portion. This is insane, I said finally. You're destroying our family over a friendship that's already over. I'm not destroying our family, Elias said. I'm trying to save what's left of it. For Lila's sake, if not for ours. What if I fight this? What if I get my own lawyer? Janet and Elias exchanged a look. That's certainly your right, Janet said. But I should warn you that Mr. Vane has been documenting concerning behavior for several months. Social media posts, witness statements, records of your whereabouts and activities. If this goes to court, it won't be pretty. I felt the blood drain from my face. What kind of documentation? Elias pulled out a thick folder of his own. Screenshots of every social media post you've made about Mars, copies of text messages between you two that you left open on your laptop, statements from people who saw you together around town, records of the times you lied about where you were going or what you were doing, a timeline of every evening you chose to spend with her instead of with your family. I stared at the folder in horror. You've been spying on me. I've been protecting myself and our daughter because I knew this day would come. Janet stood up and handed me a business card. Mrs. Vane, I'd recommend you get your own legal representation. This separation agreement is fair, but if you choose to contest it, things will get more complicated for everyone involved. After they left, I sat alone in what had been our living room, surrounded by the remnants of the life I'd thrown away. Pictures of our wedding, family vacations, Layla's artwork on the refrigerator. All of it felt like artifacts from someone else's life. I tried calling my mother, but she didn't answer. I tried calling Jenna, but she let it go to voicemail. I even tried calling Mars one more time, but her number had been disconnected. For the first time in months, I was completely alone. No husband to fight with, no best friend to validate my choices, no family members to take my side. Just me and the consequences of every decision I'd made since Mars came back into my life. I looked around the house I'd be leaving soon, at the family photos that would be split up, at my daughter's toys that I might only see during supervised visits. And finally, I understood what I'd lost. But understanding came too late. The papers were filed, the lawyers were involved, and Elias had moved on. I'd chosen my own happiness over everything else, and now I had neither happiness nor everything else. I had nothing at all. 3 weeks later, I was served with final divorce papers at my workplace, in front of my colleagues and patients. Elias had been thorough, documenting everything, protecting his interests and Lila's future. The evidence was overwhelming, the case was airtight, and I had no grounds to contest it. As I signed the papers that officially ended my marriage, I thought about that day months ago when Mars had first suggested I deserved better. She'd been right about one thing. I did deserve better. I deserved a husband who loved me, a daughter who looked up to me, a family that was built on trust and commitment. I'd had all of that, and I'd thrown it away for a friendship that lasted 6 months and a woman who disappeared the moment things got complicated. The final irony came a week after the divorce was finalized. I ran into Mars at the grocery store, looking happy and relaxed with a man I didn't recognize. When she saw me, she gave me a polite smile and a little wave, like I was an acquaintance she barely remembered. "Celestina, how are you? I heard about the divorce. I'm sorry it didn't work out." She introduced me to her new boyfriend, a successful businessman who was clearly smitten with her. They were planning a trip to Europe, she said, starting fresh, exploring new adventures together. "I hope you find happiness too," she said as they walked away, her arm linked through his. And there it was. The woman I'd destroyed my marriage for was already on to her next adventure, her next relationship, her next victim. I'd been nothing more than a temporary distraction, a brief diversion during her own divorce recovery. I stood in the cereal aisle of the grocery store, watching my former best friend walk away with her new love interest, and finally understood the full scope of my stupidity. I'd sacrificed everything real for something that had never been real at all. But it was too late for understanding, too late for apologies, too late for anything except learning to live with the consequences of choosing excitement over stability, validation over commitment, and my own selfish desires over the people who had actually loved me. Elias remarried 2 years later, a kind woman who became a wonderful stepmother to Lila. They moved to a bigger house in a better school district, and from what I could see during my limited visitation times, they were genuinely happy. I remained alone, working at the same clinic, living in a small apartment, seeing my daughter every other weekend, under the watchful eye of a court-appointed supervisor. The life I'd thought I deserved had turned out to be exactly the life I'd earned. And Mars? She moved away 6 months after I saw her at the grocery store, leaving behind a trail of broken relationships and confused former friends who couldn't quite understand what had happened to them. But I understood. Finally, completely, devastatingly, I understood.